Welcome back, everybody, to Scale Success Reptile Podcast. Thank you for joining us again on this Tuesday. This is the fourth Tuesday of the month, so we're closing out February with a very special guest. We have Adeline Robinson. It's funny because I just asked her if it was Adeline or Adeline, but we have Adeline Robinson on, and we're going to talk about her art, her support with US Arc, and what it got for her journey to get to where she's at now. Before we do that, let's say hi to a couple people, give you guys a quick update on what's going on in our world. So let me see. From 2 weeks ago, we have we had a couple shows that came up, local shows like Repticon, at what's it, Reptilian Nation, West Palm Beach here in South Florida. And she vends a lot, and I've seen her a couple other shows. So approached her about asking coming on podcast, and she said, of course, right on spot. But we had that. We still have a couple of hatchlings from 2023 still left for you guys if you guys are interested in that. I've been running a couple auctions and sales. If you guys are interested in any of 2023 babies, we have plenty of sables, lavender visuals, double head lavender albino visuals, and some albinos, some anacondas, and all that stuff. So take a look at our morph market there. What else? Oh, next show we got going on, which we'll have a couple other podcasts, but we are going to be going to NARBC Arlington out there. So it's in April, I think the first weekend of April, if I'm not wrong. So if you guys are out in the Dallas Arlington area, actually it's NARBC Dallas now because they moved the location. So if you guys are out there, make sure to check us out. Come say hi. We'll have a handful of hognose, all be 2023 babies. 23 hatchlings. Probably almost close to a year old already. So if you guys are looking for any specific project animals, definitely check us out. And we'll have some pet stuff. And then before we get on and stuff like that, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors and partnerships. So it's a quick video. Sea Serpent Rack and Incubators is the official sponsorship of Clover's Reptile and Scale Success Reptile Podcast. If you're looking for a PVC rack or incubator, make sure to check them out. We've been using their racks for the past 2 years, and it's a great product, and they have great customer service. Now let's mention our partnerships. Reptilinks has partnered up with Clover's Reptiles and Scale Success Reptile Podcast. If you want to feed a diverse diet to your reptiles, make sure to check them out and use Clover to get $5 off your next order. If you want to take your husbandry and record keeping to the next level, make sure to take advantage of the free 30-day trial with our link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen. Husbandry Pro has helped us keeping track of our breeding plans, our hatchlings, and overall just keeping us organized with all of our reptiles. Make sure to use shipyourreptiles.com to receive or ship your reptiles and use Clover's 15 to save $15 off any one shipment. Sea Serpents, and then all of our partnerships. There's a couple of discount codes there for you guys to try out. And if you guys have any questions about any of those companies, DM me on Instagram or message something. Email us at cloversreptiles@gmail.com. We're always willing to give a recommendation or answer any questions. And all the products that we are sponsored by or have partnerships with, I use personally. So like I said, I wouldn't recommend anything that I don't personally use or a company I haven't used. And then other than that, let's say hi to a couple people that are in the chats today. Both Reptiles, what's going on, bud? Thanks for joining in, Kiko. Another South Florida guy. Dustin, what's up, homie? What's up? Thanks for joining in. Loving V-Dubs, always on here. Thanks for joining in. Greg Lovato, what's up? How's it going? GS Reptiles, I'm not wrong. Damn, I think I butchered that your reptile thing. But thanks for guys for joining in tonight. If you guys have any questions as well, if you guys support the channel or the podcast tonight, make sure to drop a super chat. And on the replay, go ahead and drop a super thanks as well. Help us support us keep going and upgrading our setup here with the podcast. All right, without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest tonight. And let's get talking some reptiles and reptile art. Adeline,
Thank
welcome to the Success Reptile Podcast.
thank you.
Thank you. And like I mentioned in the intro, I've seen you a couple shows, I mean, a lot of shows. You've been to a lot of shows, right?
I do,
Um,
yeah.
but I've never really approached you and stuff like that. And I did this time, and I asked you if you were interested in right on the spot. You said sure. I really appreciate that as well. For coming on and gracing us with your time and
No,
stuff like that.
absolutely. I always love chatting, and I always love, meeting new people and just conversing, and that's a big part of why I love shows so much and why I love being able to meet people in the community. So it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah. And that's another same thing why I'm doing this podcast, because it's really cool to talk to people that have the same interests and hobby and the love for the animals.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's hard to speak to your, non-reptile friends about your reptiles, or you want to talk to them and you talk their ear off, and after 20 minutes they're like, okay, I'm good.
For sure.
Where some of these podcasts sometimes, go 2+ hours, and a lot of times we can talk even more after the fact.
Oh,
Um,
for sure. I mean, there's so many overlapping interests, and I feel like so many other hobbies too within the reptile community that it's always just super fun to chat and learn about people and learn about what they're into, because some folks are into some really crazy other hobbies as well that you'd never know about unless you talk to
mhm.
them, and that all starts with reptiles, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah, and that's very interesting too, how like you said, other hobbies, commingle into our hobby, like let's say plants,
Mhm.
aquatic, and it can go, I think it's with animals and nature, it can go as well as your imagination can take it, right?
Absolutely.
And you can see it too in your art. That's another thing to your art. It's really cool. So
Thanks.
before we get so deep into your art, what initially like started you into the reptile world?
So I had animals growing up. So I was lucky enough to grow up in a house where I had a birdie in my room. We had snakes. My parents told me about a retic they used to have before I was born. So I was very lucky in that I was able to have a household that was very supportive in animals. So we had a lot of fish tanks. We had some small mammals, a decent amount of reptiles, and dogs. And so all throughout my childhood, I always had reptiles. But what really got me into them, I had been working in an aquatic store for several years, and simultaneously started just kind of collecting reptiles as well because I had always liked them. And through there, I started doing some educational shows. And then I met the owner of a wildlife center that was local that had a lot of really cool reptiles and did a lot of educational shows and stuff like that. So I ended up working with him. And I used to do birthday parties, and I used to, breed all kinds of stuff. I had a really big collection for a long time. And went from there into um, mom and pop owned pet store, Birds and Beast Pet Shop. So I worked there for a long time, right after the wildlife center and the fish store. So I've always been around animals. I've always been around reptiles, and they've always been something that I've just been interested in. But I would say that it didn't really quite kick off in terms of doing artwork with them until I actually left the industry and started picking up artwork on the side after work as kind of a de-stressor and something that I wanted to get back into again. And that completely brought me back because I missed it so much. I missed all my friends. I missed chatting with other breeders and other people that were just as enthusiastic as, as we all are about them. So, I ended up getting back into it. And I feel like even though I don't have a massive collection anymore, my passion for it is stronger than ever.
Oh, that's really cool. So you said you grew up with reptiles. At what age did you start like your own collection?
Probably, I mean, I kept pets passively in high school, but right out of
Mhm.
high school is when I started really getting more and more. And then I started doing birthday parties and educational shows since I had already done that for work. And, I would do traveling reptile parties and stuff like that. And then I was working on breeding projects. So I used to breed Ackies. I had a good variety of like retics. I had boas. I had Amazon tree boas and emeralds. And I had just like a huge variety of stuff. And, it took several years of kind of honing down what I really wanted to work with specifically. And especially with moving so much. And once I started doing artwork full time, I was traveling and hitting up more shows. So I did downsize considerably. And I've got my tree monitors now, and I've got my red striped gargoyle geckos is what I'm currently working on. And it's manageable, which is nice.
Yeah. I think that's a very important, looking into the future on how much you can handle and manage, because I mean, you went through it already. You start with one and then it evolves,
Yeah.
Yeah. When you look back, you're like, oh my God, how did I get myself into this, And it's, but you know what it is? I think most people, I don't say everybody, but most people that do it is because they love the actual animals. And it's just,
Oh, it's
really
fun.
cool to have, these things in our home,
Yeah, especially when you're setting up terrariums and you literally have like a piece of the jungle in your house. And it's so fun to be able to watch them interact with each other, watch them interact with you. You start developing a relationship with these animals. So it's really amazing and really special. So it was a lot of fun. At the time I had the time for it. I was home more. I was able to dedicate, a lot of attention and socializing time with them. And just as I got busier and busier, I was like, I'd rather do quality over quantity. Thankfully, with the amount of friends that I've got that are into different things, I was able to play some of the animals with my friends. So I get updates on them all the time, which is great.
Cool.
And that way I could kind of spend more time, focused on what I want to do with them, not just maintaining them, because that's the only time that I have.
Yeah. That's cool that you were able to, give so many animals to your friends, because, just giving them away and not knowing what will happen to them in the future will probably a really hard decision to make for some people, especially if you really love your animals.
Sure.
Do you know at your most animals, how many animals you had at once? Around about?
Probably like in the 120 range to 150, maybe more,
Okay.
maybe less. I honestly don't know, because that would be counting babies. And I've always had other stuff in the house as well. So it's always been aquatics and other animals too. I'm going to say like 150, give or take, but I don't really know.
Yeah. And that's a lot. That's a lot, especially having different species.
Yeah.
Because if you have 150 of one species, there's one routine care, feeding and
Mhm.
stuff like that. Now, when you start changing different species, lizards, aquatics, snakes, it changes. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
different work.
Oh, for
That's really
sure.
cool.
Yeah. I'm down to like 30 something geckos right now, like for babies, and it takes like no time at all to do them. Because like you said, you're doing the same thing over and over. You could just make a method of it. But when you've got so many different species, it definitely varies and takes a lot longer for
Yeah.
sure.
So what caused you to get out of the reptile hobby that time that you were out?
So I got a job offer to go to Indiana to work for an auction company. So I do graphic design as well. And my husband is a photographer. And so we actually both got offers to move out of state and become their graphic design and photography team. And so, in my mind, I feel like the little nagging things people say in the back of my mind kind of got to me a little bit, where people are like, "Oh, you need, grown-up job, you want to get a grown-up job." When I had to spend my entire life working at pet stores and wildlife centers, I'd hear that a lot. And I was like, well, all right, could be a really good opportunity. This is, something that I'd really like to pursue further. And so I moved out of state for it. And the first 6 months were great. But after the first 6 months, it went downhill so fast. We were told we would be getting paid one thing, and we were told we'd be able to, get X, Y, and Z in terms of benefits for the job. You get there and it's something completely different. So that's kind of the situation that we found ourselves in. And I was away from everybody I knew. I'm from Northern Illinois, the Chicago area. And so a lot of my friends are local to here, all my breeder friends, the shop I worked at. And so moving out of state to somewhere that I wasn't familiar with, I didn't know anybody, I was focused on work, and I would still talk to everybody online, but being able to go to local shows or be able to, have fun and chat reptiles wasn't really an option for me anymore. So in like 2018, at the end of 2018, a little bit in 2019, I started drawing a little bit, and I started what's called the Inktober challenge. So for every day in October, there's a prompt list for artists, and they'll draw whatever's on that list one day for every day of October. And I made mine animal themed because I like drawing animals. And sure enough friends that were in the hobby were watching me draw, and they were like, "Hey, would you draw my snake?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll draw your snake. Why not? Could you draw my lizard? I'd love to draw your lizard." And that kind of snowballed into me working until 1 or 2 in the morning after I got home from my salary job, working on logos, working on pet portraits. And I just kind of got to the point where, I wasn't happy at work. It was like slowly killing me. I missed my friends. I missed the industry. And I just thought, what if I quit my 9 to 5 and I do this full time? Don't know if I could do it, but I might as well try it. And I had a lot of wonderful support from some good friends that basically helped me make that jump. And it was terrifying because I've always been employed by somebody. I've been working since I was 14. So I'd never done anything like that before, and I did it. And we are, about 4 years later. And I'm happy to say we've got a studio space now, and we're traveling to shows, and we're doing it.
Yeah, and that's a very a lot of people don't understand that process of, especially like going out on your own and taking that risk. But if it's something that you love, I mean, look, you're become successful and I can see that you love it. I see you at shows like Daytona and stuff like that. You're painting there the whole show, and you're doing what you love. Not similar situation, but was it 2 years ago now? I decided back into animals, reptiles with my daughters, and I go, you know what? It's like, this is a childhood dream. Why not try it out? And so far, it's been pretty good for myself. And they just dove deep into the reptile world, and I wouldn't look back. It's funny because I had a daddy-daughter dance on Friday. I was talking to some of the dads, and the common question when you meet somebody or they ask you, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I was like, "Oh, I breed and sell reptiles and stuff like that." And it's funny because like you'll see like certain people's intrigue to see like, "Oh, but how do you do it?" And where do you do it from? Yeah, what do you mean? And one of the dads that really got interested in it, he goes, "Oh man," he goes, "I don't want to talk about my job now. I'm just a software engineer and stuff like that." I go, you know what? It's like, I was in your shoes one day too. I was like, I was working for a company doing a corporate job, and I was unhappy really. And now I really enjoy what I do every day, taking care of the animals, doing YouTube videos, hear the podcasts and stuff like that. So, what I tell people is, if whatever it is, if it's into the reptiles or any other, like hobby or something that you can turn into a business, try it out as long as you have a plan, and it might work out. You might figure out that that's what you were missing. I went to like a zoo. I live like 10 minutes away from the zoo Miami, and they do a once or twice a month. They do like what's it called? Like scientists, herpetologists, oceanographers, stuff like that will come and do a presentation after the zoo's closed. And I went with my daughter, and there's this project called the Ditmars Project, and they talk about the Ditmars horned lizard in Mexico that they've been studying for the last 2 years. And it was really cool to see that these guys are professional herpers, basically, and then just go collect animals. And what I told my daughter, because my daughter went with me, I was like, that was like a missed calling for me there. I was like, I wish I could be a professional herper, many years now, but looking to the future now, breeding Western hognose, doing YouTube, and having fun at shows with our reptile friends. So it's really cool that whole process. With your drawings, did you draw when you were younger, or was this something later on that you discovered?
I've always been drawing since I was really little, and I did a lot of stuff in high school. I was always in the art room for my lunches. I would hang out, in the art room. But I pretty much stopped after I graduated high school. So I went like 8 or 9 years and not really drawing. You know, maybe I'd do a little doodle here and there just for a friend, but I just stopped because I didn't have time. And I was so preoccupied with working with animals hands-on that I didn't think about it much. I would draw here and there, but not much. And I think it's kind of funny how it's one of those like blessing in disguise things where getting out of it got me back into it, but this time with artwork. I don't know if I would have done it otherwise. It just kind of happened that way. There was no plan really when I first started. I was just drawing to draw, and it snowballed into this. So I'm all about that. You know, if you find your passion in something you really enjoy, like you said, you know, it can't hurt to just start it. Even if you start it as like a part-time thing or, you know, a hobby on the side, watch it grow, see how it does. And you never know, you can make it your full-time thing if you really put in the work.
Yeah. When was, because you said in 2018 you started really drawing, right? You said around that time frame?
It's when I started doodling a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I think it was the end of 2019 when I really started picking it up. And then by February of 2020 is when I quit my job and went full time with it.
When did you make your first like art sale?
I got commissioned online. So there was some breeders and some folks that I knew that, you know, technically those were like my first art sales. And then I had one show, it was right before Tinley. It was like the weekend before Tinley. That was actually at my old job. So I used to work at the Wildlife Discovery Center in Lake Forest, and they had a Reptile Rampage is one of the events that they would put on. So, you know, I got my first table and I set my artwork up, and it's so funny because if you look at my setups from then to now, it's changed so much and it's grown so much, which I'm very grateful for. But yeah, that was like my first time vending, and it was like mind-boggling to me that people would come over and want to buy some artwork. And it still kind of blows my mind to think about the fact that I've got my art in people's houses. So yeah, that was kind of the first start. I had set my artwork at the Birds and Beasts table at a couple shows in 2019, but outside of that was my first time like having my own booth. So it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, I remember that first vending the show and setting up with your own, you know, my own animals and stuff like that was nervous, you know, exciting, and you know, and I think I sold one animal. That was Daytona last year. I vended with a friend and I had some animals there. I sold one animal and I was like, man, this is cool. You know, it's like I get to sit here, handle animals, talk about hog nose, and you know, sell. It's like, why not? And then since then I've tried to vend at least one show a month and stuff like that. Mostly local shows. And I guess I was telling that in the what's it called in the intro was where now in here in April I'll be at NARBC Dallas. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I still got to figure out the full logistics of getting my animals and my display there. I have ideas, but I got to schedule some stuff here next week and, you know, dial that down. Talking about vending, since when did you say you vended? When did it really like take off where you were vending? You know, how many shows a year do you currently do, you think?
I think at the moment I've got like 14 on the schedule. I think there's some other ones that we're looking at possibly doing. It's another logistics thing though. Like I would love to do the super shows, but they're all out west, and that's like a week's worth of driving just to be able to get out there if we're not, you know, rushing nonstop. So that's something that I'd love to try to see if we can do, but I just don't quite know yet. But I think we've got like 14 shows. As of last night, we got our tables for we got our tables for a show that's local here for this upcoming weekend. So that one's not on the schedule, but it'll be fun. So yeah, there might be a few peppered in.
Okay, so that's around one show a month. You know, 14 shows a year. Yeah, once or twice here and there. Yeah. What's the furthest show you do?
The furthest? I would say it's either Houston or the West Palm show would be probably. I mean, I have done the the Vegas show that Reptilian Nation put on. I did do that a couple years ago, and I did do the Salt Lake City show. So those were like the two farthest, but they're not regular shows that we do. So I would say the Reptilian Nation Houston show and then the West Palm show are probably the longest that we've driven so far.
Wow. Yeah, that's a far drive from all the way up there down this way. And Florida's a long drive, especially down south.
Oh yeah. But I mean, we just to be able to like have sunshine on our arms again was like amazing. After not seeing it since like October. So yeah, it's always a fun trip. Any chance I can to get to Florida, I'll take it.
I hear that. Yeah. Florida's, I mean, it's beautiful weather all year round, even though, even we don't really have a winter. I tell people, it's cold spurts here and there, for South Florida. But yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. When we went herping down there, a lot of stuff was like hiding, but we were still able to find all kinds of things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's one thing that I've been, my daughters have recently been asking me to go to the Everglades down here in Herp. We live, I think, like 30 minutes away from the Everglades National Park from the entrance.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so I'm situated really cool area, like 10 minutes away from the zoo, from Everglades National Park and stuff like that. So now that it's warming up at night during the day where it stays a little warm, the hardball stays warm. We're gonna go out there and do some pretty cool herping and stuff.
Oh, sweet. I'm so excited for you. I have yet to make it over to the Glades, but I'd love to at some point.
Yeah, I know that you came down for the West Palm show. Did you guys stay in town for a little bit, or was it like a turn and burn?
Not super long. So we went out herping every night that we were there, but then pretty much right after we headed up to Cape Coral to make a delivery, and then went up to Tampa to visit a friend. So we stayed with him. Went to the Tampa Zoo, and then pretty much had a straight shot home. It was hard timing wise because I was actually in Louisiana like a couple weeks ago, and I was hoping it was going to be back to back with this show or with the West Palm show, so I could actually stay down there for a week and like explore and check everything out. So we were on a little bit of a time crunch on the way back, so I didn't really get to make as many stops as I would have liked. But next time.
Yeah, next time you might have to make a little further south and stuff like that, and hit up the Glades and the zoo is really. I always recommend the zoo to people. They have a pretty cool reptile little like house and stuff like that. They have some pretty cool stuff out there. With the shows vending, did you always drive to the shows? Yeah.
With what I have, because paper is so crazy heavy and because there's so much of it, we pretty much have to drive everywhere. We've thought about shipping stuff and we've talked to people about shipping it, but man, the amount of times that it's been Saturday morning and some of the big suppliers still haven't gotten their shipments yet kind of makes me leery. And, we're not quite in the position to be able to take, I feel like, that type of gamble with things either not arriving on time or, it's something that we might be able to pursue further down the line, but with shipping, then we would need flights and a rental car and a way to be able to, package everything up, move everything around, and hotels or Airbnb or whatnot. So it's a bit easier for us to be able to just drive everything over there. And that's kind of why we don't have livestock with us. So that way we can stop, we can explore, we can check stuff out. We can get dinner after a show and not have to worry about getting the animals, back home right away. So I only bring the animals to the local shows.
Okay, so you do have animals at the local shows. I didn't know that. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah, unless you're local, typically most people don't. Actually, a lot of people don't know that I do breed. And to be 100% honest, I am awful about posting or, doing anything with them. I kind of hoard them. And I have, some holdbacks that I've been looking at, and I just don't really advertise them very much. But I will have animals at Tinley, and I will have them at the Schomburg show. I don't know if I'll be bringing them out this weekend, but yeah, I just don't like bringing them on far trips because, I never know if I'm going to stop somewhere or, I don't want them to be on the road for super long.
Okay. So for any people that are going to be at Tinley, any of the local shows, what species are you currently breeding that you have available?
Red gargoyle geckos. So I've had my tree monitors pretty much all separated since I moved. which was tough because the last two places I was at, they were starting to get their groove and were starting to lay eggs, and then I would have to move again. So when I finally moved back home, you know, I downsized the collection, and I've pretty much kept everything separate as I waited to get some custom cages in. So I finally got the custom cages in. I've been working on them. So we're going to be getting them all set up and getting the tree monitors paired up again, which I'm excited about. So keeping fingers crossed that all goes smoothly, and we'll have babies eventually at the shows too.
Okay, cool. So crested geckos, what's your favorite morph in crested geckos right now? Or what are you working on?
I do gargoyles, so I don't do crested.
Gargoyles. Sorry, gargoyle. Okay.
Oh no, you're good. I'm a sucker for the red stripes. I think they're really cool. They're just like, they're so bold, especially when they fire up. You know, I think the blotches are really pretty as well. But when they get fired up and they're literally like stark white with bright red, that is super cool to me. That I just think they're really pretty. So I'd say those guys are my favorite at the moment. I wish I knew more about cresties, but to be honest, I'm not in the crested market. So I've got a lot of friends that are, but
for sure.
Don't keep up with all the different phenotypes.
But you know, with that being said, is, you know, with all the art that you create and stuff like that, where do you get your inspirations from, or do you get friends to send you pictures of some pretty cool stuff, or how do you go about the process of that?
So I'm friends with a lot of wonderful reptile photographers, which is awesome. I'm friends with a lot of amazing breeders, which is awesome, and hobbyists. So luckily through Facebook, there's a lot of really awesome photos out there, and usually I'll just reach out and go, hey, you know, would it be possible to use this for a painting? And usually people are super chill about it. I've yet to have anybody, you know, upset that I've asked them. So typically through networking and just chatting with folks, and if I see a photo that just looks like it would make an amazing piece of artwork, I'll just reach out and ask. But yeah, I'm always looking for reference photos. I am a reference photo hoarder, can never have too many. So sometimes I'll also, you know, make a post and go, hey guys, I'm looking for red-tailed boa reference photos, wild types only. Can you tell me the locality and send me photos? So I'm a big fan of wild type animals. I try to do my artwork based on them because everybody can appreciate a wild type. Morph can be a little bit specific based on people's tastes. And, I just admire the animals as they are. The fact that they evolve to look the way they do, behave the way they do, is just amazing to me, that they're like that naturally. And so I want to be able to try to bring that across in artwork.
Yeah, that's cool. You know, it's funny because I think at Arlington last year, I stopped by your table. Guys, I went and hang out. I have family in Arlington, so but I asked if you had any other if you had a normal, I think, hog nose. And currently you only have the albino, right?
Yeah, so it's funny because I was just thinking, I was like, man, I got to do like that wild type hog nose at some point. I'm on the list of all the stuff I want to get done for the year, and they're on the list for sure. It's taken a while for me to get through everything, but we've been making a lot of changes in terms of workflow, and hopefully I'll be able to crank out a lot of cool pieces this year.
Okay, so what is like your creative process on a design from, you know, inception to finishing it?
So typically I'll find a piece that really speaks to me or looks really cool. Occasionally I will be looking for species before I have a photo. And so that's when I'll make a call out, or I'll post in, you know, species specific groups, even, you know, like there's a Tokay Keepers group, or, you know, dry marking groups. And I'll go, hey guys, this is what I'm looking for. These are the specs that I need. You know, please feel free to send anything over if you're cool with me using it. So it'll be one way or the other. If I find a photo that's perfect, awesome, that's my reference, and that's what I'm going to use straight up, that I'll base my piece off of. I do take artistic liberties. Sometimes there's dropped tails that are regrown. Sometimes there's, you know, missing toes or things like that I'll kind of, you know,
pencil
not
in,
necessarily fix up, but yeah, I'll make the animal look the way it did before any of that happened. I've had some photos that I've done of some animals that has pretty severe scarring that I kind of went over. So that's one method. Another method that I have is sometimes I will find a body or a pose position that is perfect. but maybe the animal's color isn't quite great, or maybe the head detail isn't the greatest, or the head's facing a different direction. So sometimes I will Frankenstein them together and take, the body of one animal with the pattern of another and then the head of another as well, and kind of combine it all and put it together to make the image that I'm looking for if it doesn't exist. So a couple different ways of going about it. But once I've got the idea, I've got it all laid out, and I've got, the vision for what it's going to look like on paper, what I'll do is I'll just get a pencil and I'll do my sketching. So I'll sketch it all out and make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. I'll almost erase it so you can barely see it. And then from there, I'll do my marker work. And usually that's when I start the time-lapse video. And I just go pretty much from the lightest colors and then layer them until they're dark. So it's kind of interesting. I work light to dark with the markers. And then when I do paintings, it's dark to light. So a couple different methods.
Yeah. Do you have a preference in the type of medium and stuff like if it's markers or painting, stuff like that?
Actually, I've got them with me right now. I'm working on a piece all day today. So they're called Copic markers. They're fine art alcohol-based marker from Japan, and they're refillable, which is super awesome. So they're kind of expensive, but you can find them secondhand, and they're actually groups where people swap, where they've got different colors. You can kind of see them right over there. But they are super fun to play with. They're very precise. And what I also use is I've got fine tip, pens and markers and things where I can get details like micro scales, which are time consuming. But I like being able to get as crisp as I can. So I try to push myself with each piece I do. I want to challenge myself in one way or the other. So I'll either get as tight of details as I can and make it as crisp as possible, or sometimes I'll incorporate other elements into the artwork, and that'll be my challenge within it too. So, but I try to get as accurate as I can.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially with scales to especially color in and make look as realistic as possible. It takes a lot of time. I have Japanese artwork and stuff like that, tattoos. And one of the things when I was getting done, my artist asked me, he goes, we can color in the full scale. It'll be quicker. And, or you can I can go individual scales and it'll look a lot better. So it's interesting that full process on how to do it. It's like, oh, I'll go the individual scale. And it's taking a lot of time to do individual scales,
Oh yeah. I'm working on a beardy right now. I'm almost done with it. I can show you if you like. And the scales on beardies, man, I severely underestimated the amount of time that was going to take me, because I've got so many different types of scales. So a lot of snakes, you've got basically, for the most part, similar scales all throughout the body, other than the scoots, and they're kind of the same size and shape. And with beardies, you've got so many flat scales, pointy scales, round scales, a little bit of everything with them. So it's taken me a long time to get this guy done.
That's cool. When you get pictures of, like I said, the beardy, do you have to zoom in and really get details and stuff like that? Okay.
Yeah, I zoom in as far as I can before it's all pixels, basically. Okay. So usually I'll work section by section, and I'll blow the foot up huge, so I can try to see all of the scales in the foot and try to get that as close as I can. Obviously I'm not a computer and I'm not a printer, so it's not necessarily going to be perfect, but I get as close as I can to be able to make it real, lifelike looking.
Now, the process of when you started and to where you're at now, your skills, how did you develop that?
A lot of practice, honestly. And a lot of it has to do with mindset. I notice at a lot of the shows I go to, so many people, oh, I can't even draw a stick figure, or I used to draw, but I suck at it, so I stopped, or I can't. The key is not to stop. And it's easy to get frustrated with your work. Everybody does. But if you look at it as a learning opportunity and you try to apply that to your next piece, you're going to grow so fast and so quickly. If you've got that mindset, though, when you get frustrated and you just yell at yourself and you say your work is crap, you're not going to get any better if you've got that negative mindset. You really need to push yourself, and it's not easy. And one thing I heard from somebody was that the better you get, the higher your standards get. So it could very easily be an unattainable, never-ending, I'm never good enough thing, or you can look at how far you've come and keep applying it to the next piece and keep challenging yourself. Because, for me personally, nothing's more satisfying than being able to come out of a challenge happy with my piece and feeling proud of myself. It may not be perfect. I can still critique stuff on it. I'll show you stuff that I would maybe change for next time, but I'll still have that pride that I got through it. I worked through it and we did it and it's good. And, next time maybe that'll be even better. So that's kind of a mindset thing that I feel like a lot of people need to take into account when they get into artwork.
Yeah, because I'm one of those people. I cannot draw to save my life right now. Like I said, my oldest daughter, she's into animals. And she's also into she wants to be a vet, but she's in a medical magnet in her middle school now. So she's part of this. It's HOSA called the group. I forget that is an acronym for like Health Occupation Students of America or something like that. So they do so they do conferences, and she joined the club this year a little late. So all the spots for the speaking one, the practical parts were taken up. So she went into the drawing and art one. So when she was gone, she has to give her a topic and a medical topic, and she has to draw a poster or something to convey the message. And she was worried. She goes, I like to draw, but I'm not a really good artist and stuff like that. And she actually got second place.
Good for her.
Yeah, and I think in 2 weeks, the first week of March, she's going to States to compete, and stuff like that. So it's like you said, you just keep trying and have some confidence in yourself, and eventually you can get it done. So it's really cool. Yeah, it's funny because I always ask her, it's maybe she should draw some reptiles, and I think the other day she started drawing a snake or something, So that's really cool, how it develops.
It is, yeah. I wanted to be a vet all throughout, basically until the end of high school when I realized how much math was involved. I wanted to be a vet in the worst way, so I would sit in on surgeries at the local vet clinic. Growing up was my thing. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a vet. And, another avenue she can look into is scientific illustration, medical illustration. There's always going to be a need for that. And I was actually reached out to by a instructor that does scientific illustration and medical illustration courses, and was interviewed by them. And it's just really cool how there's so many different aspects of working with animals or with artwork or both, vice versa. I was so focused on being a vet that I didn't realize there was other things you could do with animals too growing up. And, I just think that that's super awesome that she's really into it and that you're supporting her with it. That makes me so happy.
Thanks. And it's funny that you say that, she's been, and it's insane because she said she wants to be as I think in kindergarten, she wants to be a vet. And we've, the school she's at now, she's in 7th grade, but they have magnet schools here, and so they have special programs they apply to. So her school has a medical program. The first year was animal medicine, and they have an animal care club. So she's known as the reptile person. We actually just donated a Western hognose to the program.
That is so awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. I love that she's doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so when we went to the zoo and sat in on this discussion about the Ditmar's lizard in Mexico, I told us isn't that pretty cool? I go, there's other things you can do with animals. It doesn't always have to be a vet, just trying to, like you said, give her different options because she likes animals is the main thing, right? It's just a lot of people when they think about animals, okay, you have to be a vet. There's so many other fields and stuff like that. Like art, stuff like that. So, but you've never had any professional training for art or any schooling for art?
No. Outside of high school, I took some community college courses. I was going for an associate's in graphic arts. So there was one digital painting class, but it wasn't really this. So this is pretty much self-taught for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's wild actually to see how good your art is, and just by nature, you're that good at it. It's pretty cool.
A lot of
Um,
time, a lot of
yeah, I
scales.
can imagine. I can imagine. So, what has there been one animal that has kicked your butt on trying to draw and color?
This guy.
The bearded dragon.
The beardy, yeah, the beardy's totally whooped me. There was one piece that I did. So the ornate Uromastics.
Okay.
That piece, I obviously knew they were patterned, but until I sat down and mapped it all out, I was like, oh no, this is gonna take me a long time. Which I'm really happy with how it came out. I was super proud of how I did with it, but that one took like 20 something hours to do, because I went scale by scale with it. I did each individual scale and each individual pattern, and they've got that really cool maze labyrinth looking pattern on their back. So that took a long time. That was a good challenge. But yeah, the beardies like totally whooped me. Another piece that was pretty difficult, which is kind of funny, is the crested gecko that I did. So I did all the micro scales on it,
Yeah.
scale by scale, and that one took a long time. Oh, it's funny because when I draw snakes, I feel like I tend to get into a groove and I almost kind of go through them, not quickly, but it doesn't take me super, super, super long to do snakes. But when you've got lizards with different types of scale patterns, and when they're patterned themselves, that just like, it takes up a lot of time.
Wow. Yeah, I can definitely see that where like you had mentioned certain, especially snakes, they have a very unique, pattern and stuff like that, or there actually is an actual pattern of scales where the
Mhm.
reptiles that like the bearded dragons, the top scales are gonna be different from the belly scales, especially if you're drawing the belly and all that stuff.
Oh
Yeah, it's really
yeah.
cool. Even the feet, the scales on the feet are different. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all so different. And I didn't quite think about it until I sat down and studied them. And that is one of the fun things about being able to do artwork is I'm noticing so many details that I never really did before until I really started studying these guys. I had known oh, they've got spikes on the sides of, their heads and on the sides of their bellies, but I never really studied how their scalation worked. And what's kind of funny too is you would expect a lot of reptiles to have scales that would go in a perfect uniform pattern,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's not. Sometimes they're like super wonky. There'll be like random scales thrown in like weird spots where it's not a perfect mathematical sequence looking, pattern on them. So it's just really neat to see and to be able to get up close and personal with them.
Yeah,
It makes you
that's cool.
appreciate the animal.
Yeah, I can imagine, and what's another cool thing about your art is, especially doing shows, and you see a lot of people that come out to like, especially local shows or even the big shows, people that just are interested or intrigued by animals, but aren't
Mhm.
willing to take an animal home that day, right? And they
Mhm.
can with your art, you know. So that's another cool part. Like they have, I guess funny because I got the Diamondback Terrapin at the West Palm show from you, and I got into reptiles after the ban here in Florida, so I can't have any. So that's right now. That's the closest I can have to it, and I think they're one of the
Yeah.
coolest looking turtles there is out there. You know.
That's how I started collecting art, actually, was I was going to shows. Well, I had been going to shows,
Mhm.
and every time I would go to a show, I'd come home with an animal, and I finally got to the point where I'm like, I cannot be bringing more animals home. I need to get something else. And so I started just getting artwork from like every artist that I would see at Tinley or at any of the other shows, and that's how I started my reptile art collection. So I need to take a photo of it at some point. I actually just framed 9 pieces today that I had of prints that were sitting that needed to get framed to go up in the house. But I collect reptile art too, and it definitely is nice to be able to look at the wall, look at a species that you may want that can't have necessarily,
Mhm.
but you still get to look at them and enjoy them.
Yeah, yeah, it's really cool. Um, what now with your original art that do you sell it? Do you keep some back? Okay, a little bit of both, or
Um, I've sold. I pretty much have most of them open and available. There's 2 pieces that I'm holding on to for myself. There's one piece that I sold that I wouldn't have minded keeping. But outside of that, all the originals are for sale. Yeah. So I actually have them up on the website right now. I'm running a sale on them.
Okay, cool. And then with that, the at the shows, especially like the big like Daytona and stuff like that, that's like our local, biggest show here in Florida.
Yeah.
What you know do you have a process of like, all right, at this show, because you always auction off, you donate to US Arc auctions, a piece that you did during the show. Do you have an idea and do you plan that piece before the show, or is
It's
when you
usually
get
like the day before.
was that
It's usually like the day before or the day
okay?
of.
Okay.
Yeah, usually it's such a whirlwind prepping for the show that by the time I get to figure out what I'm going to do for the show, it's like the day before, the day of. Sometimes it's a mad rush. Sometimes I've got an idea of what I'd like to do, but usually it's kind of a last minute, like, let's do this. Why not? Or I'll
Mhm.
have a canvas that I'll bring with me. So it kind of depends on the show. Sometimes I'm more prepared than others. But yeah, for not this last one, what did I even do for? Oh, I did the surfboard. So that one was
The
planned.
surfboard, yeah.
Yeah, the surfboard was planned, and then the year before that we did a cutout of sea turtles, so that was planned too. But the last Arlington, I was planning on painting on a bottle. Sometimes I'll get like a bottle of whiskey or something, and I'll paint
Mhm.
on it. And I forgot to go to the store, and so I'm in a panic. I'm like, oh shoot, like I forgot to go. Chris, can you run out and like get a bottle of whiskey while I'm setting up at the show? And we're running around. And I didn't realize that in the hotel or the Starbucks, like in the lobby, they were selling cowboy hats. And
Okay.
so I'm like, hey, I've never painted on a cowboy hat before. Let's make it happen. It worked out perfectly. So kind of depends on the show, but yeah, it can be kind of last minute sometimes.
Yeah. I can imagine. And do you carry all your art supplies with you at these shows, or do you bring like essentials that you're gonna, okay, this is what I'll probably need to draw.
Yeah, I've got essentials that I bring. So if I have an idea that I'm going to paint something, I'll bring just a little bag of like my acrylic paints and my brushes and my water and whatnot, just to have it, so that way I can. I used to bring my Copic markers and try to get traditionals done during shows, but it's really hard to do. So I don't really bring them along much anymore. But sometimes I'll bring paint with me, or the Posca markers, which I use quite a bit for the auction pieces.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to find on your Instagram the surfboard that you did last year at Daytona, 'cause that was really cool to see.
Yeah, that was so fun. And I had been wanting to do a surfboard since like my first Daytona. I'm like, I need to do something fun and like beachy. So that was a blast to work on.
Yeah. Then what? How long at that show? How long did it take you to? Because it was, I mean, all day Saturday, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Did you
So I
start it
I,
that morning?
I start as soon as general public can get in,
Okay.
and then it's usually done like 30 minutes before cutoff time is usually kind of what the method is when it comes to my live paintings. So yeah, I was hustling. I was trying to get as much done as I can. Sometimes I'll prep a piece. So like for the surfboard, for example,
Mhm.
it was basically like a beige color. And so maybe the week beforehand, I taped it off and I spray painted it blue. So that way I wouldn't have to like sit there and try to fill in the blue of the water. But then I did all the details and all the animal work at the show.
Okay. And with the shows, while you're doing those shows, um how's the sales of your actual art pieces that are for sale go? How do you handle that?
So I'm very grateful in that my lovely husband is amazing at basically making sure that everything's in order and working. So he's manning the table. And then at the bigger shows, we do have help. So one of our great friends, Jason, he comes out. He's our buddy that's by Tampa. He comes out to the show and he helps me. And so Jason and Chris will be handling the table while I'm painting. And then for Tinley, I've got a friend, Eva. She'll come out and she'll bend the table while I'm painting as well. So usually for the other shows, it's okay to have like one of us, but for the real big ones, we do need help, and it's greatly appreciated.
That's cool. Yeah, I think a support system is so important, and like having more than one person behind the table, especially at, like you said, those busy shows,
Mhm.
it gets a lot. It gets a lot to try to interact with all the people walking up to your table. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have a lot of questions, or just want to talk to you, right, about your art. Um, so
Yeah,
that's
and I
really
want
cool.
everybody to feel welcome. I don't want anybody ever to come up to the table and feel like they were ignored or anything. I want to
Mhm.
say hi to everybody. I want to chat, and people will talk to me while I'm painting, and I'm happy to chat while I'm painting. I just can't stop. And I've heard a few people say that I've got like a real mean looking concentration face. So if I'm ever at a show and someone sees me and they want to say hi and I'm painting and I look mad, I promise you I'm not. That might just be me focusing. But feel free to say hi.
That's good to know. Okay. Um, and now with all like the USARC donations and stuff that I do, when did you start doing that, and how did it start?
Um, I've pretty much always tried to donate something.
Mhm.
Before I ever started doing artwork, we would donate baskets of things or whatever we could. And then actually, I did one painting in like 2016 that I did donate that a friend ended up buying. But it wasn't until like 2019 that I really started ramping it up and trying to at least, I want to make an original piece for every auction. I want to be able to put in stuff for charity events as well, because sometimes there's fundraisers for people that need medical assistance or things like that. I want to be able to help out. So that's kind of when I started doing this full time, is when I actually had the capacity to be able to create stuff regularly for them. So if it weren't for them, we wouldn't necessarily have the shows that we have or be able to do what we're doing. It's pretty crazy how there's so many laws that folks are trying to pass to ban transportation. Up here in Illinois, they were trying to ban transportation of any exotic animals. So like zoos, vet offices, like how is that supposed to work?
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful that USARC does what they do to be able to, protect keepers' rights. Very grateful
Mhm.
to them.
Yeah. Yeah. So guys, if you're viewing and you know who USARC is, go in the description below. I have their USARC national link and USARC Florida. So a lot of people don't know that there's two separate entities, and you
Mhm.
don't need to live in Florida to support USARC Florida as well. So you guys go check that out. And they do a good fight, especially here in Florida. There's a lot of the stuff that trickles down to other states starts a lot of times in Florida, unfortunately.
Mhm.
I mean, Florida is the mecca of reptiles. It's where everything was coming in, and so go ahead and check that, guys. Check it out. And I know USARC Florida has a free membership too. So if you want to get a USARC national membership, try that, and then just go sign up for USARC Florida's free membership, and just get on their newsletters and all that stuff. Because that's another thing too, right? The newsletters are really cool when you get that email. Okay, this is going on in this state, even if you're not from that state.
Mhm. Oh, for
National.
sure. Yeah, no, I love USARC Florida. They're super wonderful, and I always do whatever I can to be able to help support them too. So I'll ship
Mhm.
them stuff, or sometimes when I'm at shows down there, I'll send them packages to be able to put in their auctions too. Because yeah, it all starts in Florida, and without Florida, I feel like everything else pretty much kind of crumbles. So they're
Mhm.
both very, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. And then do you have a favorite piece that you've drawn?
I do. The Black Cayman, I think, is my
Okay.
favorite so far. So it's one that I really like the realism in it.
Mhm.
I worked really hard to be able to try to get some reflection off of the scales and a lot of details in it. And a friend of mine, my friend Jason, told me, this is what I love about being able to be friends with people that are serious about these animals and specialize in these animals. Is he told me while I was working on it, he's like, hey, make sure you make those ridges on their skulls pronounced, because that's a indicator of that species, and that's something that they have that's unique to them. So make sure you make these ridges very visible, because that's something that they have. And to be able to have that kind of insider scoop, I guess, when it comes to animals is awesome. So I try to do my best to do the animals justice, and that's a piece that I'm pretty proud of. So I'd say that one's my favorite. There's another one that I'm very proud of that won the Copic Regional Award for North America, and that's the Indian Gharial I did. So I was pretty proud of that one. it was pretty challenging because it's a gharial coming out of water, eating a fish. And I'd never drawn water before. It was super scary. So I'm pretty proud of that one too, but I think the Black Caiman's my favorite.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that one up later on then, and take a look at it. Um, Now with like, positioning an animal, like you were saying earlier, sometimes you have pictures that you like the pattern, or the animal was not in the right position. Do you ever like dive deep into like the animal's habitat or positions or like behaviors?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I haven't been able to do a whole lot of habitat paintings yet.
Mhm.
So a lot of mine have been more scientific illustration style, where you've got the animal just on like a plain background. But
Mhm.
I'm hoping that this year I can do more in situ habitat photos. So one of my main goals, I'm also working on an Ecuadorian series of Ecuadorian species, and so I'm hoping to get basically the jungle and the plants from the local areas in that incorporated as well. So that's part of why I love traveling, is so I can go herping and take my own photos of where these animals are living. So there's one piece that I really want to do. We went to the Salt Flats a couple years ago out west to do the Salt Lake City show. And when we were out herping, we were in these mountains right at the edge of the Salt Flats. And I was looking for horned lizards. So that was like my goal. I'm like, I would lose my mind if I could find a horned lizard. That would be so cool. It's a lifer. And I had this image in my head of what the perfect photo, I guess, would be. And we found a bunch of them. And I kind of try to position them a little bit. Like when I did find them, I'm like, sit on this rock, please. Let me try to get photos of you. And they were close, but not quite. And, took photos of their habitat, took photos of the mountains and all the scrub and all the different areas that we're hiding out on. But on the way back down the mountain, it was super cool. We were in our Springer van, and I'm looking at the edge of the road. It's not even like a road, but the path, I guess. And I see a little thing whiz by, and it looked like a horned lizard sitting on a rock. But I was like, I could totally be imagining this. So I asked my husband, I'm like, hey, can you stop the van? I need to see if this is a horned lizard or not. I could totally be imagining things. It could be a rock that I mistook, but please pull over. So we pull over and I hop out, and sure enough, there's a horned lizard sitting on a rock, perfectly the exact way I imagined, my perfect reference would be. He was sitting just like that. And so he was lifting himself up. He had his body propped up. His head was looking into the sun, and he just looked glorious. And so I was able to get really close to him. I couldn't believe it. I literally got maybe like a foot away from him, just taking photos on my phone, as many as I could, as detailed as I could, and I got that perfect shot. So I'm really excited to paint that with his whole habitat, with the background in there. So that's one piece I'd love to do this year.
That sounds really cool. Yeah, like and find that was meant to be, right? Like just
Yeah.
driving down the road and it happens to find it. That's really cool. Yeah. So that's another thing too. Like, that's really cool about like traveling for shows, being able to take that extra time to go herping. I think that's where like with me with like I'm doing the Dallas show. I want to do, like you said, the California show and stuff like that. And I want to drive them because I know there's so many cool spots you can stop by to either
Yep.
look at animal sanctuaries, go herping and stuff like that all over the world, all over the country.
Yeah, we hit 3 zoos in 3 days once on the way back from a show, and that was super fun.
Yeah.
And then you meet zookeepers too. You meet people that are in that world, and that kind of opens more doors. And so it's really awesome, kind of the network of zookeepers you end up meeting, just going to these zoos and going out herping and meeting state herpetologists at reptile shows. It's really fun how that can all kind of come together.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe there's like that one species that you want to draw on, like somebody doesn't have in their collection and stuff like that, and that person can help you out.
Oh, for sure.
With the reptiles and your husband, was he into reptiles too?
So
Or did that come in later?
Initially, no.
Okay.
We actually met at the March 2014 Tinley show. And so he was with a friend. He had no interest, but his friend was like, hey, you want to go to the reptile show? He's like, It's like, well, they got some beer. He's like, hey, let's do it. Why not? Well, it's something to do on the weekend. So he came out for it. And it's pretty funny because he wasn't really into it at all. And then sure enough, next thing I know, we've got a pretty decent collection. And he's like, you've won the tree. I know you're into the monitors. Like, check out these tree monitors. You should get these tree monitors. I'm like, well, don't mind if I do. And so he's been amazing and encouraging me. I actually didn't realize he wasn't a fan of tarantulas or snakes when we first met. And he definitely, he's come a long way. I'm super proud of him. But yeah, he's really into it. And it's really nice because we work on it together. And without his support, I wouldn't be doing any of this. So super grateful for that.
Yeah. And talking about, meeting at the Tinley show, was it last year? You guys got married at the show, right?
Yeah, at the October Tinley show. Yeah.
Yeah. How did that come about? Like, was it just like, let's do it there,
It was a friend brought it up and we're like, oh, I don't know. But then we thought more about it and all of our friends are at Tinley. Like, we met at Tinley. I've been going to Tinley since like 2011 and he's been going since 2014. So a lot of people were there when we first met. We met in the lobby after the show and, I met a lot of wonderful friends that same night. We were all together. And so it's been an amazing journey with so many people. And, I couldn't imagine not sharing it with everyone too. There's so many close friends. Literally all of my friends are all reptile people, excluding like a few folks. So literally everybody in my circle is, I either met through that show or somehow indirectly through it. Tinley was my first show that I ever went to. And, the first time going to that show, it's mind-blowing how busy it is, how much is going on. There's people from Germany and Korea and Japan vending. It's an amazing community. So it just changed my life so much. And so many people were such a part of it that we thought, hey, why not have it there? And in my mind, I'm like, oh, we'll just have like a quick little ceremony. Like, it's not going to be anything big or crazy. And the turnout for that was just absolutely insane. Like, I'm so grateful to know so many amazing people that, that were there, and to be able to have everybody there was really special.
Yeah. And like you said, you had so many amazing people, and, just approaching you at that, at the West Palm show and stuff like that, like you get what you put out. And, I've seen your shows and the way you interact at the US Arc auctions and stuff like that. It's like, you generally are very friendly. You speak up to, I can see you at the West Palm show, I can see your table and I can see that you speak to everybody and stuff like that. So that's really cool to be able to culminate that life event there again,
Yeah, it's super special.
Yeah, I think last year in Daytona, if I'm not wrong, somebody got married on the beach. From some like reptile. Yeah. Somebody got married on the beach in Daytona. So that was pretty cool to see too.
Yeah, it's really fun how many connections have been made just through the industry. Because like, I wouldn't have ended up working at the pet store that I worked at for so many years without going to Tinley. All the friends that I have, I wouldn't have met had I not gone to that show and chatted with people. It's pretty neat to kind of see the pieces, how they end up falling together, just based on going to one thing.
Yeah. So like with the shows and so West Palm Beach, I saw you guys had your van, right? And that van, it is packed to the doors. How did you guys figure out how to pack that van, or was this you just pack as much as you can?
Blood, sweat, and tears. Lots of tears. Lots of back pain. So my husband is amazing in that he loves Sprinter vans. It's something that he's been into for a long time. And so, as soon as we got the Sprinter, we started just coming up with ideas. He started doing all this research of like how to put a bed in there, how to put an AC unit in there, how to, put a fridge, and we've got a microwave in there and set everything up. So normally the way we have it set up, we have it so that way we can overnight on the way back and forth to shows. But for this West Palm show, we ended up getting really big painting at the antique market that was going on that same weekend. So we actually arrived really early. So we couldn't set up for like 4 hours. And so we ended up going and checking out the antiques, and I bought this absolutely ridiculously huge painting. and we couldn't fit it in the van with the bed there. So he actually had to take the bed down to be able to fit the painting in the van, and that's how we ended up having it packed up. But yeah, it's packed to the brim. That's something that we're currently working on, is planning for the future, because I don't want to have to carry 50-pound bins up and down all the time forever. So we're looking into different solutions for being able to carry everything back and forth, because it's over 1,000 pounds in paper that we bring. We actually weighed it all on a scale once, and it adds up. So yeah, a lot of trial and error, a lot of moving things around. Thankfully, the bins stack up pretty nicely. But yeah, we ended up having to actually raise our bed to be able to fit 3 bins on top of each other. Before it was only 2, and we just had so much inventory, we had to raise the bed. And yeah, so we're still figuring it out. It'll be a work in progress forever, I'm sure.
Yeah, when I was walking out and I was loading up my car, I noticed one thing that caught my eye. I was like, "Oh man, that's a smart idea." You guys have that like that carriage on the back, and I think you guys load. What was it? Did you guys load it? I think it's like a dolly or something.
Yeah, so we've got a U-boat,
Mm-hmm.
and that thing is awesome. It's super light, and so we use that to be able to get everything in and out. And you can stack. I think I can stack like 4 bins high on it, so it could carry quite a bit, and it makes life so much easier. But yeah, it's nice to be able to have that in the back. And actually, one show we forgot it. we forgot to bring it with us, and we definitely weren't happy campers, but we made it work.
Yeah, I can imagine moving all those, like you said, those heavy boxes with the paper and in and out. Oh, that's got to be a lot of work. So any upcoming special projects that you may want to share with our viewers or anything like that any?
I do, yeah. So actually,
Okay.
we're currently working on getting a Patreon going. So I have a lot of people that ask me if I do tutorials, or if I teach, or if I, have walkthroughs of my artwork. So we're going to be basically creating the Patreon so that way I could post tutorials. I'll be doing process videos. I'll be doing art supply reviews, critiques. I'll have some exclusive artwork that I'll do for patrons, and people will be able to vote on what they want to see next. So I always get people looking for stuff, and it's a little hard because there's a lot of species out there, and there's a lot of different requests and a lot of things to work on. So I'm hoping to be able to make the Patreon a fun community where people can get a little bit more involved with the process, where it's learning or being involved with what pieces I produce next. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So that's something that we're working on now. And, we've got the upcoming shows that are going to be awesome that I'm really looking forward to. So those are kind of the main 2 things. There's some artwork pieces that I would love to get working on, but we're not quite there yet to be able to get started. So hopefully soon. But yeah, the Patreon's kind of our number one thing we're focusing on right now, as well as getting ready for Tinley.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool idea, because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that want to try to create art like you, and definitely it's hard to answer individual questions, and when you can just give out to a group or be able to post it somewhere, that's going to be really cool. I'm definitely going to join in for my daughter when you
awesome.
have that.
Yeah, I always appreciate everybody reaching out, and I try to answer everybody's questions as much as I can. I just feel like I'll be able to finally make a place where I've got, step-by-step walkthroughs, and I can kind of answer everybody's question at the same time. So it'll be fun, and I'll be doing some fun, like exclusive coloring sheets and exclusive merch and stuff too. But it'll be really fun. I'm really excited. It's kind of like a long project coming, and working on the studio that I'm in right now. That's another project that we've been focusing a lot of time on, is getting all of this finished up. So I'm excited. A lot of good things coming.
So do you have now like a brick and mortar studio?
So we do, yeah. So I previously was working out of where we live. It's almost kind of studio apartment sized, which is partly why I had downsized so much. So I had my animals across from my table, and then next door was the bedroom. So it was all very close, which is a double-edged sword. It's amazing that I don't have to go anywhere, but it's also, I'm working on my artwork and my laundry staring at me, or like I got cages I got to clean and I can't stop thinking about it. And at the same time, I'm like folding my laundry and I'm like, I should really be working right now. Like I need to get this stuff done. So the lines between work and personal life disappeared. And it got pretty overwhelming because I was just working nonstop and I never could really take a break from it. And so I'd get burnt out. I'd get burnt out and I'd get real tired. And as much as I loved drawing, I would get to the point where I would just get frustrated. And I'm like, oh, I've just been drawing nonstop. Like I need to get away from it, but I didn't have anywhere to get away from it. Where now we've got a space that we're currently working on. Half of it is my studio where I create. The other half is where I'm going to have all the inventory. And it's effectively like a small shipping area / warehouse. And I can actually go home and come to work and go home. And it's nice to be able to have that separation. And now I find myself really excited to get to work and really excited to work on stuff, because I've got that time off where I'm not worrying about it. I'm not focusing on work. I can focus on what I'm doing at home and be present. And that actually gets me excited to be able to spend my time over here focused on what I'm doing. So it's been an amazing change in terms of my output, what I'm able to create. And I've got space now. I've got space to be able to create art where previously, if I had a big canvas I was working on, that took up like the whole room. I had no space for it. So it's pretty exciting to be able to have the tools that I need and the space and time and focus to be able to do it.
Oh, that's really cool because the burnout and the over I would say maybe overindulgence of something like that. It's real. I
Mhm.
luckily I only have a few years now, 2 years now into the hog nose, and the moment I wake up, especially now breeding season, the first thing I do is I come in here and I check on the see if there's any locks, if there's how's the breeding going, and then I'll
Yeah.
walk across the hallway and wake up my daughter for school. And that's how my morning starts.
Mhm.
But like I can definitely see it sucks you in, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes those lines get blurred, and I think a lot of people have because a lot of the reptile hobby starts in your home, and if you
Mhm.
eventually develop into like a full blown business stuff for that, a lot of people I think go through that very hard lesson of separating the two or
Oh, for
setting
sure.
very hard schedules. When it's hard when it's right there in your house. Um,
Mhm.
how many hours are you putting in at your studio now that you have like an actual place you go and come in and out?
So I have alarms to remind me work time and work time. So 9 to 5 is what I'm here 9 to 5, and then
Okay.
I do take a break during lunch. So sometimes I'll come in a little early. Sometimes I'll stay a little late, depending on what time I get here. It's a very loose 9 to 5, but I try to stick with it as much as I can. What changes a little bit too is I do have a horse that I'm working on conditioning. And so for lunch, I want to run to the barn, get her exercise, get her what she needs, and then come back to it. So sometimes there's going to be some variation in time. It's not always going to be perfect, but roughly 9 to 5 is what I try to stick to. And like I said, it's awesome because I'll get home. I could focus on my animals. I could focus on what I need to at home. And that's when I'll actually, I'll sometimes come up with ideas and then I'll be excited to apply them, or I'll think of them through a little better at home. And then by the time I get to work, I'm like ready to go. So it's kind of neat how that's changed. But yeah, I try to be strict with my schedule when it comes to the amount of time working on artwork. So the time start or the time in between might vary a little bit, but I try to be in here 9 to 5 ish.
Wow. That's really good. That's like it's interesting you have alarms, to be able to remind you because for sure you can definitely get lost in the process, right?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
and
time goes like that when I'm creating. So actually I've got a clock in front of me and then I've got a clock behind me. So that way, no matter where I'm at, I can kind of keep an eye on the time because it's very easy to get sucked into it and then like wonder why my eyes are strained or my back hurts. So it's
yeah,
good to take little breaks. And I've been doing a lot of research in there's a podcast called The Productivity Show that I've been listening to. and it's talking about how to best effectively use your time. So I've been doing a lot of research in, small business management, personal management, and being able to set certain times to do certain things is super helpful. So I get up, I work out, I shower, I take care of the animals, and then I get ready to go to work. And that method has really helped a lot.
Yeah, I think that's very important too. When you have the business, your personal life, it's managing and setting that time. Because like you said, you could, especially in something like with dealing with reptiles that you love to work with, you could go from Monday to Sunday, probably 10 hours a day if you don't separate and set your schedule that way. For people that are within that world or have that problem right now, what made you realize that you needed to separate that, and how did you go about that?
Truthfully, I was just super burnt out.
Mm.
It's difficult when one of the number one things that you love, you just don't want to do it. And I kind of got to that point where, I love reptiles, I love drawing, but I was so engrossed in it, and I didn't take any time for myself at all. And I won't say that I started to resent it, because I never resented it, but I didn't allow myself any time to think about where I wanted to go with it, think about my goals. I didn't think about the things that I wanted to draw. I was kind of focused on the grind per se, where I was just doing commissions back to back and not doing anything that I really enjoyed. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't working out or taking care of myself. I was just stressing over, things that I needed to do nonstop when it necessarily wasn't even urgent. I just mentally thought, oh, I got to get this done now. I got to get this done now. I'm behind. And I got to the point where I was just sick of it. I was frustrated. I was tired. I was always exhausted because I was overworking myself. And I just knew I needed to take a step back and get back to what, the whole reason I love this. The whole reason I love it is because the animals are amazing. They come in such a huge variety. I want to be able to draw cool stuff. I want to be able to bring awareness to these cool animals that we live with that people may not know about. And I want to feel good again physically. So it took my horse having some issues in terms of musculature and her needing chiropractic work for me to go, okay, she needs work. I need to do this for myself too. I'm here getting a chiropractor for my horse, but I'm not doing anything for myself. And yeah, I'm doing her a disservice if I'm not taking care of myself either. And so that's when I started working out again, trying to eat a little better, trying to maintain, a good, healthy schedule, getting enough sleep. And as soon as I started focusing on all of that, everything else started falling into place. That's when I started listening to more podcasts about different tips on why you're not meeting your, New Year's resolutions, and different tips on how to better manage your time or how to better manage your stress, and applied them. And it's just helped immensely. I feel great again. I'm excited about the future. I'm excited about all these new projects. Even when I've got a challenging piece like this beardy that's totally kicked my butt, I'm still super proud of it. I'm still happy that I did it. Yeah. So it's really changed everything all around. So I think that's something that, just as small business owners in general, can kind of fall into a trap of not focusing on yourself. When you're just got all your focus on the business, you're not necessarily doing your business a service. So, planning, being able to take a day to think, a day to plan, to be able to look at where you want to go in the future is so instrumental. I feel like I spent 3 years kind of just getting by, working on what was in front of me and not looking at my long-term goals. And now that I've taken a step back, there's a lot of things that I would love to do and incorporate into the business and to be able to do in the future that I hadn't given thought of before. So it's definitely been a huge help. And I hope if anyone can take something from this, it's take some time for yourself, because without you, your business isn't going to go where it needs to.
No, that's really good tips. Because I think, like I was saying, there's a lot of people in those shoes. I know a few friends that are in those shoes where, you know, either they grew their business really quick, and now they're trying to catch up and figure it out. And you have those, like, all right, what am I doing moments? Is this something I really
Mhm.
want to do? Am I over it? But like, especially with the reptiles and animals, it's like, if you get rid of them, you're gonna miss it. I mean, you already went through that process, right?
Mhm.
You gave your animals to friends, stuff like that, and you missed it, and you got back into the art. Um, Now, we'll say, with you got your Patreon going on, you have you know, this bearded dragon that's kicking your butt right now, and then you have shows coming up right
Mhm.
now. Like, what's your priority in like your scheduling right now with that stuff?
That's a great question. Honestly, the I'm kind of working on all three, but
Mhm.
I try to allot different days for different things.
Mm.
So I've got my handy dandy weekday planner, and what I'll do is to make things less overwhelming, because when you've got a lot of things going on, it's all swimming in your head, and it can get terrifying. You could be thinking, "Oh man, I've got all these things I got to do. I can't get it all done. I can't get it all done at once." But what I've been doing is I set different days of the week for different projects. So I will work on my art piece for most of the morning, and then I'll take the last couple hours and then focus on updating the website. And I'll write that down and make it so that way I have it scheduled out, and I'm allotting the time for the things that need to be done first. And what's helped too is, even if you have a lot going on, you don't necessarily have to get it all done in one day. You don't have to add all of that on your list. So I try to just add one, maybe two things a day for me to
Mm.
get done, where it's like work on a traditional piece and then do a couple website things, or advertise today and then work on a commission. So that way it's not as overwhelming, and it's a realistic time frame, and I can dedicate all of my energy to it. My brain isn't thinking about that thing while I'm working on this thing and worrying about another thing in the back of my head. So
Yeah.
scheduling it out has helped a lot. Currently, we're working on the building and working on the Patreon and getting ready for Tinley. So depending on the days, I spent one day where I sat down with Chris, with my husband, and I went, okay, well, what do we need for March Tinley? We're upgrading this, this, and this. We need to place this order so that way it gets done in time. And once I got all that effectively out of the way or finished, then I could focus on some other stuff that isn't as time sensitive.
Mhm.
So usually it's based on what's time sensitive and what's not. So that's kind of one of the methods that's helped me feel like chill out quite a bit, and it's helped me get a lot more done. It's very easy to get paralyzed when you've got too much stuff going on, where you're just like, well, where do I start? There's too much to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's based on what needs to get done now, and then what can I plan for tomorrow, or for this week, or maybe even for the following week. So currently it's getting March Tinley stuff finished and getting the Patreon going.
Okay. Yeah, and like you say, I think right now during the show you had an alarm go off, right?
I
Um,
did, yeah.
and I use that same system with alarms, and just to remind me certain things, because you get sucked, like I said, you sucked into your work or something you're doing, and it totally goes
Mhm.
past it. That's another great tool you can use, is your smartphone, right? You have it with you all the time. Notes, alarms, reminders from Siri, all that stuff.
Yeah, the
You know,
calendars, like, they're amazing.
yeah. I had a question because, with art and having your pictures all over online and stuff like that on the websites and Instagram, have you ever come to where like somebody takes your art and passes their own, or
Oh
somebody's
my god, yes.
reselling your art? How
Yes.
do you combat that? How do you go about that?
It's hard to do.
Yeah.
Facebook is terrible when it comes to reporting anybody for scams or being a fraud. So
Mhm.
my artwork, and then the artwork of a lot of my peers, other logo designers, has gotten snatched. And logo scammers are rampant right now. They're everywhere. I actually did I made a pretty big post where it was, things to look out for, how to know how to spot a scammer, how to identify them, and here's the actual artist that created the artwork that these scammers did. So what I did is I made a big post and I took screenshots. Usually what I try to do is I'll take a screenshot of the account that's impersonating a logo artist, I guess, and I'll blast them online and I'll try to basically do a big scam alert so that way everybody can see it. I've made some posts in some of the bigger reptile groups online to try to make people more aware of it, but it's difficult because as much as you can report it, they're going to come up with another one right around the corner. So I actually stopped posting my logos and I stopped posting my digital work online, and I've got it on my website, but I took it off of Instagram. Some of them still kind of float around sometimes, but I noticed that my stuff hasn't been getting snatched as much. So usually too, the community is really tight knit, and I've got a lot of awesome people that have sent me, hey, by the way, this person's trying to be you, just so you know. So I'll take a screenshot and I'll share it on all my pages and go, hey, this is a scammer, keep an eye out. But pretty much anybody, for reference, for anybody watching this, if anybody reaches out to you and tells you that they make logos or Reptiles logos, that's a scammer. There's a lot of wonderful reptile artists in the community, but they're not going to, unless you ask them to message you, they're not going to just message you and ask if you want logos. Nobody does that. The scammers do that. And there's a group I actually made. It's called Herpetological Art Collective and Support. And I encourage reptile artists to post and share their artwork there. People that, artists that are open for commission, people that are wanting to network with artists are always welcome to go check that out. That's where there are legitimate reptile artists that do logos and graphic design and branding for businesses. So always recommend checking that out because that's real people.
Now that's a good resource to have, because being in different group chats and stuff like that, people are asking, does anybody recommend a logo, somebody to make a logo or some art, reptile art and stuff like that. So that's really cool to have that place to go, and you can actually have real people and some people that are known within the reptile community.
Yeah, it's fun too because there's so much variety in there. There's sculptors, there's people that do paintings, there's people that do digital work, and everybody's got their own style. So I always recommend people go check it out to find an artist who has a style you like and that you enjoy, and then go talk to them directly. But yeah, the scammers are pretty rampant online. So I try to watermark stuff as much as I can. It was actually pretty funny because there's been a couple scammers that have taken photos with my image where I've got my arm with my tattoos and I'm drawing, and everybody's like, hey, that's clearly not you. That you're not who you say you are, and it's kind of amusing. It's frustrating, but it can't necessarily be stopped. So I just try to bring as much awareness to it as I can.
Have you ever run into where they actually take an image off of your website or your social media and then reprint it and sell your prints or stuff like that?
I haven't had that happen to me personally, but I have seen actually at the last West Palm show, I recognize a Kimberly Rock Monitor drawing that a friend of mine did, and she's an Australian artist. And so I follow her and I'm familiar with her work, and I saw all these stickers that somebody was selling. So I think they just got a Cricut. They just started printing stuff out. And I was like, hey, your artwork is here. And I don't think it should be, and sure enough, she's like, oh yeah, that stuff's been stolen. And so I gave her all the information to be able to contact them, to be able to make sure that they took it down. But yeah, I have seen it happen before. It doesn't happen very often, thankfully, but it's a risk.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, watermarking stuff is important, which nowadays with all the AI and all these extra tools, if somebody wants to steal your image or remove all these your name or watermarks off it, you can eventually find it, but try to make it a little extra harder for them, extra steps to actually do it.
That's basically it. So a sculptor friend of mine, JL Cook, she had watermarks all over her photos, and it is absolutely insane what she's had to deal with. She had her work stolen and basically reproduced on I don't know if it's on Temu or if it's on Wish specifically, but all these Chinese companies have been popping up. And I don't know if you've seen them with t-shirts. They'll steal artwork, they'll throw it on t-shirts, and then they'll make a sponsored ad. So someone that loves reptiles, they're going to be scrolling, and there's going to be a hoodie that pops up that's got some cool reptile art on it that they're going to want to buy. And these little pop-up shops, they're gone like instantly. Like they'll be up for a few days or a few weeks, and then they'll disappear, and then they'll come out with a new one. So her artwork got stolen, and they actually started trying to do really bad reproductions of her art and selling them. So she does scale by scale, high detail realism sculptures, super realistic. She literally gets like a scale count by like the state herpetologist to have them look through it, accurate stuff. And someone ended up buying one of her resin castings, sending it to China. And it's just crazy because they started posting her photos and claiming to sell her sculptures for $30. And people were getting all these ads thinking that it was her. And so, you know, sure enough, people are buying these, receiving them. They're getting a hunk of like bad plastic snake, tiny hand, you know, door handles. And then they're reaching out to her, you know, fuming mad that they didn't get what they thought that they would. And she's like, hey, that's a scammer. You just got scammed. They used my images of my sculptures and her bronzes. You know, it's not cheap. This is high-end, high-quality artwork. And they're just selling them for 20, 30 bucks online. People are falling for it. They're seeing it. And so she's actually got a lawsuit going on with Facebook right now because they're not taking down any of those sponsored ads. And it's really unfortunate. It's happened to a lot of artists, especially with Temu and Wish, where they're just snagging anything they can and posting it online at a fraction of the cost, and people are getting, you know, garbage stuff. So it's definitely a huge problem right now. But you know, the best we can do is try to protect ourselves as much as we can. I try not to post high res images. You know, I try to make it a little more difficult for people to steal stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, if they're going to do it, then they're going to. So.
And you know that old saying, if a deal's too good to be true, it probably isn't. You know, like if you're thinking, you know, there's, like you said, like your friend, you know, you're getting a super deal on something like that, then you should look into it more. Why is the person running a sale on their website, or was it, you know? But sometimes we get caught up with like, okay, it's such a cool deal, I'm gonna buy it, right?
Yeah, you see it and you get excited. And I think a big thing too now, especially for me, that I'm on Facebook Marketplace a lot, and there's a lot of scammers on there too. So what we've been doing is reverse image searching. So if you see something super cool that you think is awesome, that is crazy cheap, chances are if you do a reverse image search or Google search, if you've got Google Photos, you can use Google Lens. I think iPhones have that capability as well. It will do a reverse image search and it'll tell you where that image is from originally. And so, you know, if people have stopped, reverse image searched that image, they would have found her website, or they would have found her, you know, the actual sculptor. So I think that's a good practice to do just in general. There's been a few times on Facebook Marketplace where we were going to go leave and get a couch, and the person gave me an address. The person gave me all the information, and they were maybe an hour away. And so we're like, okay, we're going to start heading in your direction. They're like, oh, well, you got to put a deposit on it. Like, we're an hour away, and we said we were going to take it. They're like, well, you know, we want to make sure that, I mean, if you want to chance the hour drive, you can, but it might be gone by the time you get here. I'm like, okay, this is kind of fishy. So did a reverse image search, and that popped up in like several different groups. It was all the same image, all the same verbiage. So it, you know, then we're like, oh, this is obviously a scam. So you just have to be pretty vigilant out there.
Yeah. And another thing too, I've seen too, not just stealing the artwork, but like the scams of people stealing credit cards and stuff like that, and paying for reptiles with stolen cards or bank accounts and stuff like that, and then you get chargebacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a recommendation because like I use QuickBooks for all my invoices and stuff like that. I try not to use PayPal or Zelle or stuff like that. And QuickBooks now came out with a chargeback protection. So if you use QuickBooks and you send invoices, They take a little percentage. I think it's like a 1.99% of the sale. But it protects you against chargebacks up to like
That's awesome.
$10,000 worth of chargeback for one transaction. So that that 1.99%, you never know, especially dealing with online and a lot of stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. You hear it happening all the time. It's crazy.
I mean, it was like, and I've heard people like sell, $1,000 animals plus, 10K animals, and then turn around like ship the animal, and while the animal's in transit, or when
Yeah.
after it gets there, there's a chargeback. That
Wow.
can sometimes crumble a small business, and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Wasn't say so right now you have the gargoyle geckos. Are you plan to add any other? You have your monitors, right?
Mhm.
Are you plan to add or breed any other species?
Eventually, if we do end up getting more space and more time, I always think it would be nice to expand my tree monitor collection again. But I don't know. I don't know if I will. It's difficult because I really enjoy being able to go out there in the field and seeing animal in their habitats firsthand. And so it's kind of that difficulty of, okay, well, do I want to keep, which is a commitment, it requires a lot of, responsibility,
Yeah.
or go out and travel more. And so it's something that I think we'll figure it out as it goes. I had a really good tree monitor collection, and I did downsize it quite a bit. I do miss them. I do really enjoy them a lot, but at the same time, I would love to see them in the wild. I would love to be able to travel. I want to go to Ecuador. I want to go to Indonesia. I want to go to all these different places where, it's wild right now. Who knows how long it's going to be wild? Hopefully we can keep it that way.
There's this gentleman, forget his first name, but on his Instagram, I had him on our podcast, and his name's Father Blue on Instagram.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He just went to Batanta and did a docu series on his own and stuff like that. And I think that's pretty cool.
I saw something about that for sure. Yeah.
So
That's
you guys
the
are
dream.
whoever's interested, take a look at that. I've been speaking back and forth to him about it, and he's thinking about he's debating on doing like series releases. It's pretty long, or doing one big release of, I think it's like a couple hour like documentary on
That'd be cool.
on monitors and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's just so much out there to see. There's so much I really want to do.
Now we're getting close to closing out. Before we let you go, what are the main services? If somebody wants to commission a work and stuff like that, what kind of commission work do you do?
So I currently am focusing on my traditional work. So I'm spending a lot of time trying to up my skills, trying to get as detailed as I can. So I'm always taking traditional commissions. For logo commissions, I'm only taking a very limited amount right now. So that way I can kind of better focus on being a better artist, continuing to push myself to get better and better. So because of my schedule, I'm only taking a limited amount of logos, but everybody's welcome to reach out, check out my website. I've got all the logo and pricing information on there. So I am still taking some, but it's just on a very limited basis. So it kind of depends on the project and if that works out. And timing wise, sometimes I've got several shows that I got to get to, and I won't be able to get to something for a while. So I'm always happy to chat with folks if they want to just message me directly. But yeah, I do. I'll do the traditional portraiture and the logos and graphic designing as well. So I've got all that info on my website, and then I've got my web shop too. And people are always welcome to come over at shows, chat with me. I always love talking and meeting folks. So
cool. Okay. Yeah. And guys, I her website and her Instagram's linked in the description, so you guys can go check all that stuff out from there, and make sure to go follow her on Instagram and see all the cool work. Because I saw like the beginning parts of that bearded dragon that you're drawing, and I can see there's a lot of lines and a lot of work there. Can you show us a preview of it?
I was gonna say, I'll let me grab it real quick. So yeah, the last like 3 days I've been working.
Oh wow!
So I'm gonna try to get them as close as I can to the camera,
No,
but
it looks. Let me.
going scale by scale on him,
Yeah, that looks really cool.
and then up his back,
Yeah,
and his little legs. So I got to get the tail finished up. I'm hoping to have him done. There's his arms.
that's cool. Just the detail in the beard, it's really really cool.
Yeah, that was a tricky one. So he got the beard, and then there's so much space in between the scales in his beard too. So it was really neat, kind of getting zoomed in and looking at what the actual details were. So I'm pretty excited to get that guy finished up. Hopefully, I can get him done tomorrow because there's some new pieces that I would love to get started on.
Cool. All right. And then one of the last questions I have for all my guests is, if you had the attention of the world for a few minutes, what would your message be to the world?
Oh man, that's a tricky one. The whole reason I do all of this is because my love for the animals and the planet that we share them with. And I would love for more people to get involved with either local wildlife organizations or to be able to donate to different charities like Rainforest Trust that purchases land and purchases wild areas to be able to continue to keep them wild. So that's kind of been one of my biggest missions from the very start, is to try to expose people to all these cool animals that we live with and to learn about them, to get involved with, conserving them. That's my biggest thing. So I'd love more people to want to be able to protect these animals we share a planet with just as much as I do.
Cool. All right. Thank you for that message. And I just want to thank everybody that showed up tonight, that was in the comments and was stuck with us through the whole interview. Thank you again, Adeline, for being here and taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us about reptiles and your art. Everybody, I just want to say thank you again. And we also now have a YouTube membership that we just put up. And if you guys are interested in, we're going to get some really cool perks. And there's 3 different levels if you guys want to join in. And just go take a look at our morph market as well. We got a lot of really cool hognose still available out there for you guys. And then Adeline, stay back real quick once I end it live. But good night, everybody. And we'll see you guys in the next 2 weeks.
Thank you so much for having me.